Research tells us that 4 out of 5 small business owners want to grow their business, but only 1/3 of this group will manage to do so if they try to achieve it on their own. It's relatively easy to understand an owner's motivation to grow into a larger business, but at the same time, it's quite clear that many owners either fail to recognise or fail to overcome the serious obstacles that may lie ahead. We're joined now by Bob Brown from CMC Partners. Now, Bob, you've had a long and successful business career and you now work as a business advisor. In your experience, where are small businesses going wrong?
There's a very common pattern here. Most small businesses start and they grow and they reach a certain point where growth becomes difficult. They hit a ceiling, growth beyond that point becomes difficult. And they don't think they should feel bad about that. Growth is a difficult thing to achieve. And the key issue here is about recognizing that growth requires change, and whatever they've done before needs to be looked at because we're obviously not doing the right thing. There's a big transition here as well for the owner. Growth means scaling the business, that means more people and achieving results through other people rather than doing stuff themselves.
So where do you look for problems, for obstacles?
Well, the first thing to say in most small businesses is the problem isn't outside the business, the problem is inside the business. There is a weakness somewhere, and typically that falls into one of 3 different categories. There's a weakness with the strategy. There's a lack of resources which are critical to the execution of that strategy, or there's a lack of skills. And understanding which of those is at the root of the problem is half the battle.
Having looked at those issues, how do you identify the real problem, the one that's really holding them back?
Well, what you have to do is you have to start from the strategy, but I think the really critical step for a lot of small businesses is it's fine to develop a strategy in the boardroom. The critical step is turning that into a series of actions that can be followed by other people in the business. And that's about understanding the customer and how that offer works so that you've got to go out and win new customers. It's very straightforward.
And where does CMC Partners come into this? How do you help unlock the potential for growth?
Well, it has to be said that much easier to spot problems and constraints from outside the business than it is from inside the business. That's kind of self-evident. One of the things that we do in the situation I've described is you look back at what has worked or not worked in the past and you try and understand why that's the case. Armed with that information, it's usually possible to spot one limiting factor or limiting constraint that's sort of unblocking things. If you can propose a simple way of unlocking that one, then growth then follows step at a time.
So where do you typically start with a new client?
I actually like to start from the customer. I did this quite recently. I had an interesting business. It's a good business. It's a strong business, but their big problem was how to go to growth. And what you have to look at is the elements of the offer, how that sort of plays to the typical customer, and then you've got to check that the customer actually wants what they're offering, and how do you deliver that? So for me, the customer is king. I want to start from the customer and understand how the business delivers to that customer.
Okay, thanks for those thoughts, Bob. And to find out more or to arrange an appointment with Bob Brown, go to the CMC Partners website.